I did go to bed and woke up with a tremendous toothache.
Yeah, I mean, you were in pain for at least one night, and then it went into a couple of days, right? And if anyone knows Jeff, he avoids the doctors and hospitals like the plague, but he was willing to let me make an appointment to go see a dentist. We were like, okay, let's give this a try.
Of course, it looked like a suburban area. I've never went into the dentist office through a garage. He did show up in a running suit that I thought was a little odd. I've never had a dentist have a running suit. I wasn't sure exactly what he was gonna, give me a filling or drop and give me 50 push-ups. At that point, I could have asked, a homeless guy to work on my teeth just to make it stop.
Welcome back to This Might Be a Bad Idea, where we talk about love, life, and the chaos of moving to Mexico. So this episode, we're talking about moving abroad, just making life simpler until we actually needed a dentist.
And yes, with my luck, somehow the first week, I did go to bed and woke up with a tremendous toothache.
So you were in pain.
I was in tremendous tooth pain. If anyone knows tooth pain, they know it hurts a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you were in pain for at least one night, and then it went into a couple of days, right?
Yes, definitely tried to numb my tooth, right? Used ice, used different medications to numb the tooth.
Numbing pain. And if anyone knows Jeff, he avoids the doctors and hospitals like the plague, but he was willing to let me make an appointment to go see a dentist. This dentist was referred to me before I moved to Mexico. So, we'd never been to them before, but we were like, okay, let's give this a try. So we pulled up and to this dentist. I mean, what were your first thoughts? Did you think I had the wrong address?
Yeah, there's, of course, it looked like a suburban area. So we were almost walking into, a friend's home or, someone's family member's home. So we ended up walking. We were walking towards the garage. So at this point, I'm thinking we're going into the garage. So I definitely thought that was interesting. I've never went into the dentist office through a garage. We ended up actually going left towards the home, and we went downstairs almost towards a basement.
So, we walked in, and it was, what can you describe what it looked like?
I guess the nuances of it were okay. It was very dark. There was rock walls everywhere, but it wasn't like rock that was just put there. It looked like a giant, like they built the thing by a giant boulder rock.
Yeah.
Definitely cave-like. So rock walls, cave-like, dark. There was a pond. There was a little waterfall. There was, a little tree growing by the pond. So definitely different than my normal dentist that I would go to. Yeah,
what's common here in Mexico is that a lot of people have their businesses inside their homes or a home, and then the lower area is the business, and the upstairs is where people live. So it's in a home area. So we walked in, and I remember thinking, I was like, my mom had those leather couches when I was a kid. It was 2 big leather couches when we walked in, and there were people sitting in all the chairs. They come in, everyone's speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
What was going through your head? And it was like, they were all in Spanish. I know you're.
I guess confused. I couldn't pick up on anything. I know a few words, I think, but I think even if they said those few words, I wouldn't have caught it because they were talking so fast. So at that point, I was just nodding my head, hoping that were in the right dentist.
Yeah, so we walked in, and they, hand me paperwork to fill out, for Jeff, basically because we're a new patient. So they want to know any previous family history. They want to know your date of birth. They want to know your address, your phone number. So I'm filling this out on behalf of for Jeff, and then asking him to sign. Yes. After it's all in Spanish. So
in Spanish.
He doesn't know what he's reading as he signs his name to that. And then they're like, well, sit down. And we're like, sit down where? There's like, there's all these people in the lobby waiting room.
Yes.
And then I come to find out, just hearing the Spanish, that there's multiple dentists within the doctor's office. So I was like, man, we're going to be waiting here forever. But lo and behold, we weren't waiting that long because the dentist that we were seeing, I guess he didn't have all the people that were waiting in the waiting room. He wasn't waiting for them. So we get seen pretty quickly. We walk back down the hallway.
Yeah.
The nurse speaks Spanish. Everyone's still speaking Spanish. So at what point did you know that our dentist or the doctor actually spoke English?
Well, I would say this, though. First, dark place, but very clean.
Yeah.
Very professional. Everyone was really nice. I think, of course they spoke Spanish, so I didn't understand what
They could
the
have been
words they were
telling you
saying.
that you're
So they could have been,
stupid.
yeah, they could have been making fun of me, and I would have been like, yes, thank you. But, other than that, I did walk in. I definitely thought he only spoke Spanish, but, of course, we were hoping that he spoke a little bit of English to kind of describe some of the pain, because, of course, I don't want him working on the wrong tooth, right? But no, at that point, he said a few words, and then made me feel comfortable.
Yeah, no, I mean, he was great. He was pretty awesome with his expertise when we walked in and he explained what are we here for. So then we kind of gave him the background on what we're here for, and he kind of took a look at your mouth, and then he did some x-rays, right? I think.
Yeah, they did. He did some x-rays, and I mean, it was all the same x-ray machines, right?
Yeah.
I think the only thing that was missing that I thought was a little strange was, the big gray pad that they would put on your chest. So they didn't have that, but, all the same machines, and, they worked fairly well because he instantly knew what was the issue.
Yeah, he came in after he saw the x-rays. He showed you the x-rays right then and there. It was pretty immediate. Yeah. And then he's like, this is what needs to happen, at least to stop the pain, right? And then, you went under your procedure.
Well, yeah, he gave me two options. I mean, he ultimately said he was going to take out the nerve. That was the biggest problem.
Right.
So he was taking out the nerve. And then, of course, the second part wasn't for me to come back and, get a
root canal.
Root canal, yes.
The root canal procedure.
Very exciting root canal at the dentist. Yeah. A great experience.
The one that everyone was supposed to go through that you didn't want to go through and that we kind of put on the back burner.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
You are correct.
So when are we going to actually do that?
But the dentist, though, other than that, he was great. He did show up in a running suit that I thought was a little odd. I'd never had a dentist at a running suit. I wasn't sure exactly what he was going to, give me a filling or drop and give me 50 push-ups. So I wasn't sure. But, I trusted your instincts, and, definitely, again, the whole process was comfortable. And, ultimately at the end of the night, I didn't have pain in my tooth.
So while you were getting your nerve pulled, was there any point where you're like, this is a bad idea? Like, I know you were in pain.
Probably as soon as I started feeling the pain, but at the same time, everyone going to the dentist knows that there's going to be some sort of pain involved. But remember, I was going through pain for days. I mean, I literally didn't sleep the night before because I was up for 24 hours because I couldn't go to bed due to pain. So at that point, I mean, I could have asked, a homeless guy to work on my tooth just to make it stop. And I ended up the nice dentist, and he did a great job.
Yeah, Dr. Merida. And then the cost was pretty minimum. It was about 1,000 pesos. At the time, it was about $50 USD just for the nerve removed. And then the root canal procedure, which is a 3-step process. And they were quoting that at about 12,000 pesos, which would have been around 600 or so American USD dollars. So pretty inexpensive for some dental procedures and dental work. But, definitely we got to get the next step still scheduled, Mr. Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I do slack on those type of things. I think a lot of people do slack on those type of things. I think they probably shouldn't, but it is something that you wait to the last minute until you're kind of in pain. And, probably not the best way going about it.
Is that the real reason why you didn't want to go back? It's just...
Well, I mean, look, anytime you get anything done with your tooth, especially with what I've been through, they definitely, there's pain involved. So, you take a year off and you go back. So I'm taking a year off. And
you're not going to take a year off.
Eventually I'll go back and I'll get the tooth done and everyone will be happily ever after.
That's not the way this works. Now that we're...
But eventually I will go back and get it done. And everyone should, because it is really important to do it. And, Mexico, no issues. Went there, had a great time, great experience. And look forward to going back and getting the rest of it. I don't know
if it was great, but I mean, were you expecting like medieval, dentistry just because, they say Americans has the best health insurance? What were you really expecting?
I mean, I was expecting to maybe the machinery would be a little older, maybe, but it wasn't. It was definitely everything that he needed to use to figure out what was wrong with my teeth that they would use probably in a lot of the countries, including the United States. So I guess the surprise was more that, I went in there and no one really spoke English. So everything was in Spanish and, going in there and, doing something like that and not really understanding what they're saying, sometimes a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was the whole time was in Spanish. Obviously, the doctor spoke English, which is probably the most important part for you to make you feel comfortable so you could explain your situation and how you felt. And then obviously in the waiting room, the receptionist, that's all in Spanish. So even when we're trying to close up the bill, then they has to go back to me because then, she's explaining the price and, the next steps and what that looks like and scheduling the next date. And then not me having to cancel on them because we scheduled a date for his root canal and he decided he didn't want to go. No. So then they're yelling at me in Spanish and they can't reach out to him. But I'm getting all of it. And I'm like, well, he doesn't want to go. I can't force him to go.
Well, at the same time, though, he was pitching his friend to do the operation. And I kind of felt like he was really pushing them to do it. So I felt like I was going there paying him money. And then, like everything else, I had to go back.
It was still through him.
I got it. I'm just saying that he was pushing for that. I believed him. I trusted him. And again, he did a great job. And I guess the question, would I go back to get everything finished to him? Yes, I would.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, well, we do have other dentists, that we referred. So, my plan was to check the pricing for the other 3 dentists that are in our expat group that were referred to us. Yes. And then we can make a decision from there. But, going to the dentist was just one thing because obviously that happened within a week. So, we were trying to get health insurance for us as we moved to Mexico to have private health insurance. Now, in Mexico, there is public health insurance that is available to us because we are residents. So public health insurance is free and we can go. It's paid, through the government. If you work in Mexico, obviously it goes through your employer. So, but we hadn't signed up for that yet because our plan was to get the private health insurance. But that's been a struggle in itself.
Yes.
Only because of your previous history. And then my BMI is high. Yes. And then your previous heart issues. So, I went through what?
Nothing. I just don't feel too comfortable throwing out my medical issues, but I guess.
Well, that's the point of the podcast.
I know. I'm just still taking baby steps because it's opening up, for medical conditions that they
But somebody else could be going through
very
the same.
Personal.
Somebody could be going through the same thing, right?
True. And if I can help them in some way, I would love to.
Yeah. So, that was a bit, which happened how many years ago?
When I was 37 years old. Yeah. So, we'd say 13
years ago.
Years ago, probably.
Yeah. And you've been doing good ever since.
But I think that's something that we could probably do on another podcast because that does get more involved with, what went on. So.
I get it, but we're talking about it. We're talking about health insurance.
But yeah,
the reason why we were denied health insurance.
I think ultimately, and we knew this from the start in probably a lot of countries, that when you do have medical issues in the past, it's definitely going to be harder to get medical coverage.
It's harder in the States, but even so, more in Mexico because they're, you think you have a high risk. So they just deny anything that's a high risk at all because they don't want to pay out, right? Yes. So we went to 2 different brokers for health insurance. We were denied by 2 different health insurance companies, unfortunately. So right now we're at, we have public health insurance, which is great because we can still go to anybody at any time. And then, the big thing about a lot of expats in Mexico or Merida is that everybody pays cash. And so you're still getting the same service, even though we're not paying for private health insurance, which for us, what we were quoted was about $500 to $600 a month for both of us for the year, for the annual. So it's still close to what we would have been paying in the States, maybe a little bit less for private health insurance. So paying out of pocket, it actually comes out cheaper for us because, we're only paying for when we need to see the doctor or when there's an incident. And it's not like the medical expense is high here. So a doctor can come to our house for a house call and it'll cost us $30 American dollars.
Yeah.
Where would we ever get that cost in America? Never.
Yeah, agreed. And I think for people that don't know, there is no dental insurance in Mexico. You just pay cash for everything.
Well, there's not really a lot of dental insurance in the U.S. anyway. It's very minimal usually.
Okay, well, whatever. Yeah. There is no dental insurance in Mexico, so you pay cash. And I think
dental insurance.
Okay, I thought there wasn't.
Yeah,
So
there is.
anyway, a root canal, I think we were charged around $600 cash USD in Mexico.
Yeah.
And that's normally in America, I think you're looking $3,000 close to.
Yeah.
So, that just goes you just paying cash, definitely a huge difference between Mexico and also the US.
Yeah, I mean, one of the perks is just, and the cost of just seeing a doctor is cheaper. You can even they have pharmacies all over Mexico. And within the pharmacy, you can also stop in and see a doctor. And that doctor is free. You can ask them any questions, or sometimes it might be a minimal cost. So they have pharmacies all over, and where you can go speak to a doctor and ask them, hey, I'm feeling this, or I'm seeing this. Can you help me, or give me, or tell me what I can take?
Yeah.
So that's another thing that we have the luxury of here in Mexico. And then a lot of the doctors give you their cell phone numbers, so you can talk to them on WhatsApp at any time. So people will stop over and see you on the weekend or check in on you. And that's the kind of hospitality and the difference in health insurance that it is versus the US versus Mexico. So it's not, we're getting less care.
Yeah.
It's just a different type of care. So, I've, been, very happy for the health insurance or lack of health insurance that we're having here, is just being able to still have that same service. I think that at the end of the day, that's all that really matters, right? Is the service that you get. So.
Well, that and the technology, especially as going to the dentist, they do have the same technology. So it's at least something they understand the same as the dentist in, say, the US understands.
Yeah. I mean, so we had American healthcare, which you didn't have US healthcare before we left the US. And now you don't have it here.
Didn't have any healthcare probably for at least a year. I think it was probably a year. So, yeah.
But now you have public healthcare through Mexico.
Yeah, I have public health. And, everything is a little bit less expensive. So, it's more doable to go there and pay cash for something that I need done.
So do you ever think
thankful for that?
Do you ever think that you'll be used to how easy things are for like going to the dentist or going to the doctors here?
Well, I think, for the dentist, it all comes down to when you go to the dentist, a lot of times they're picking and prodding at your teeth. For me, it's always usually ended in pain. So I do sometimes feel like, I'd rather skip the dentist this year, this 2 years or even 5 years. But no, I think the experience was good. And I think, it has to be done. And I think, I would have no problem going back and getting it done. And I look forward to it in the near future.
So that wraps up our session on healthcare and the dentist. But you tell us your medical story abroad and, if it was a bad idea or not. Thanks for tuning in.